I think I can speak for the panel when I say we're really excited to be here to talk about repairing the STEM pipeline and maybe just improving the STEM pipeline overall. So I'm Colleen Lewis. I'm a computer science professor from Harvey Mudd College. The way we're going to start this out is we're going to have everybody on the panel say their name and a brief background about what organization they're representing here, and then share, if they can, one tip from their organization, an insight into how can we repair the STEM pipeline. So unless Chad objects, we're going to start with him.
I completely object.
Okay, wonderful. We want this to be a challenging panel. so Chad, start us off.
It's fine. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks to Wayne and all of the sponsors for having us up here. Thank you very much. My name is Chad. I'm the National STEM Director for the Uncf, United Negro College Fund. I'm a very proud graduate of Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, Harvard School of Public Health. I am a biolife scientist by training. And one of the things, I mean, it's hard to narrow it down to just one statement because the pipeline is so jacked up. But I will say that we need to create spaces, learning environments where Black and brown kids and girls can learn science, technology, engineering, and math and connect STEM to their reality, their world, and their communities that surround them.
Yeah, thanks, Chad.
My name's Karla Monterroso. I'm the VP of Program for Code 2040. At Code 2040, we help get Black and Latino people into tech careers. We do that in 3 different ways. One, with college-age computer science students, where we do a fellowship program. We bring people in from all over the country, put them at different companies, do wraparound support with them, a workshop and speaker series that deals everything from the technical to the psychosocial, applicant prep that we do for the initial barrier to entry, because it's crazy right now. It's like you need a Princeton review for technical application, and our students just don't have access to the same networks. And we also have an entrepreneurship program and a set of work that we do with our company partners to make sure that our companies are shifting right alongside as our students are learning. One thing, I mean, we just did a qualitative research set with all of our fellows longitudinally, and there were 3 things that came back. I'll talk about one of them, is that every last one of our students had a failure moment where they almost gave up, where they were like, this is it, I'm not good enough for this, I'm gonna peace out any minute. And the thing that ended up bringing them back on a number of different levels was having a set of peers in which they could learn and fail in front of, because they were carrying the extra burden of being Black or Latino and representative for their race every time they opened their mouth in a classroom. And so it's super important for us to create spaces in which they can be as human as their white counterparts.
That's great. I'm also in some ways going to also participate on this panel. So I work at Harvey Mudd College, where we have a big initiative to try and increase the participation in STEM of women and underrepresented minorities. And so I'll share one tip from what we're doing at Harvey Mudd, which is to really try and align what you're doing to try and serve students to what students say needs to be fixed. And so that comes with really building empathy and really connecting to students, like what's happening for you and what are the institutional levers that we can turn to address those things. Because when there's a mismatch and you're trying to provide resources or services that don't meet the needs of your students or your population that you're trying to address, it's not productive.
Beautiful. My name is Rosie Torres, and I am excited to be here with these amazing people on the stage. And I actually represent Oakland Unified School District. I was elected in November 2012, my first time running for public office. And the reason I ran initially was that I am a criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor. I went to the right side, not the dark side, as my coworkers used to say. I said, no, I went to the right side, all right. And as a criminal attorney, I was pretty surprised that many of my criminal clients, the way I engage them is I give them the police report and I say, let's go over this police report and any inconsistencies or lies by the police, then we could talk about your defense. And many times clients had a hard time reading the police report, or they wrote me a letter that I could not read because their writing was pretty bad. So when I would talk to my clients, I would find out they had gone through high school in Oakland and had graduated high school. How is that possible? So when I ran for school board, it was because I had a child in the system, in public school, and I knew we had inequities because she was at great school, but they weren't so great in deep East Oakland and deep West Oakland. She was in a Hills school. So that inequity led me to run. Luckily, I also have this 16-year-old child who is on the pathway of computer science, and she has very little diversity in her class. Even though the school is half African American, in her class there isn't one, and she's the only Latina, and so I told her, get used to that, there'll be more of that in college. But what we are doing, which is this great timing, and the fact that I'm even here, the serendipity of that, is that we passed something called Measure N in 2014, last year. The voters, by about 85%, said, yes, we will tax ourselves on our homes, a parcel tax of just under $200 to create wall-to-wall pathways and internships for high school students. We have a couple high schools already doing that, and those students graduate at about 95% or more. And people think Oakland is just a dropout haven, but we have schools where kids are graduating almost 100%, and those are wall-to-wall internships. So we passed this measure, the voters bought into it, every student then brings with them a certain amount of dollars. What we need are partners in the community, people who are working, and people who really look like our kids, because that's a big issue. We don't have diversity in the teaching force in this country. It's 70% white women. And so our students are 90% of color and about 85% free and reduced lunch. So if they can't relate, then there's a problem. So Measure N is an amazing opportunity. We're in the planning stage, and by next school year, 16-17, it's the actual diving in and doing it. So I ask everyone in the industry, step up. You know, offer internships, come to a class, speak in front of the students about what your day's like, or even do something where by video chat, so that these kids can actually see it, because if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I say that as an attorney as well, and I was a dropout in 9th grade, yet I became an attorney and a politician, and so I know every single one of the kids I interact with, no matter how dark things are now, the sky's the limit.
My name is Priforce, and I'm the one with the tie. Because I knew Chad Womack would be here, so he's back and forth between DC and Atlanta. And
I forgot the tie.
you know, exactly. So to be very brief, Qeyno Labs, the headmaster CEO of, is the leading school provider for youth inclusive hackathons. We started off as a technology company, but then 2 years ago, we decided to do an experiment, since we're a lab, with a hackathon for black male achievement in Silicon Valley, to say black. You know, the Silicon Valley wanted to avoid the word black, and here we were saying black, but a black. And so here it was that we created this, and we created this new type of hackathon, new type of environment with the support of all of this community of leaders. And so the last thing I just want to say is that, you know, we talk about a pipeline, but where's the pipeline starting from, and where's the pipeline going? Those who are the architects of the Underground Railroad were very clear of where it was starting and where it's going. And for Qeyno Labs, we are very simple in addressing that. If we want to train our kids to be hackers and game changers, they first have to focus on changing the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What a great statement to follow. This is an amazing conference with so many people who are like-minded, isn't it? I'm so happy to be here. I'm Susan Mernit. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Hack the Hood. And we're an organization that works with low-income young people of color around the Bay Area, ages 16 to 25. And our mission is to move them from consumers of technology to creators and innovators of technology. And the young people we work with often come from communities where, when we interview them, being a security guard, being a janitor, they might think that's a good job. The kind of careers that most of you are familiar with, they haven't learned about yet, and if they know about them, they don't think tech is for them. So a lot of our work, especially in the first weeks of our boot camp, is to really help young people learn about their own strengths, learn basic tech literacy skills, learn about the tech ecosystem, learn about code switching, but most importantly, become empowered to see themselves working in tech roles that interest them. We do that not only by building their skills and having them work with local small businesses to build websites, but by bringing in mentors and allies from both large tech companies like Google, Facebook, Weebly, Twitter, but also small tech companies and individual entrepreneurs. So by the end of the 6 weeks, they really believe, oh my God, I can work in tech, I have a plan, I want to do X. But I think my tip would be, we've discovered the pipeline past that experience is broken. Too many young people we work with are going back to high schools where they're remedial classes, their schools don't have programming yet, they are making money to help pay rent for their family. They could get a full scholarship to go away to college and say, oh my God, if I go, who's going to contribute that $500 a month that my part-time job at Marshall's or Taco Bell is bringing in? So I think that, for me, I'm very interested in my tip is, let's not only think about the unicorns, the academically gifted young people who can quickly learn coding and move into careers and have some family support, even if they're poor. Let's think about the people who are coming out of being formerly incarcerated, being homeless, being trafficked, being someone who's handling a difficult family situation with a lot of responsibilities at a young age, and make sure that those people's talent and their resiliency is encouraged so they can really participate in the economy that we're all benefiting from. We don't want those people to be left out, but we have to do better to help create pathway opportunities for them.
Thank you, that was wonderful. So our next plan is to take advantage of the fact that we have an amazing room full of people. So raise your hand for a second if you are sitting next to at least one person who you have not introduced yourself to or you do not know. Are you kidding? Okay, all right. So, okay, go, bring it back. I'm gonna let you do that. Hold on. Stop.
Loaded question.
Okay, bring it back, okay. Here's the plan. In a second, we're gonna have people from the audience and potentially people from Twitter ask questions. Then these people are gonna talk, they're gonna drop some knowledge, they're gonna inspire you, it'll be great. But first, I want you, don't do this yet, what I want you to do is to introduce yourself to the people around you, talk about some of those shared questions you have about this topic or other topics. I'm gonna give you 3 minutes, and then I'm gonna do the thing, maybe you remember this from kindergarten love, like, if you could hear me clap once, that thing, we're gonna do that in 3 minutes. Talk to your neighbors. our first question is going to come from me, and then we'll come back to you. And I'd love for Chad to tell us more, a little bit more about the United Negro College Fund.
Yeah, so the UNCF is a 70-year-old organization that has been investing in the educational aspirations of African Americans for decades. And we are the leading and pretty much only nonprofit fund that specifically focuses and channels investments and capital into the academic and educational success of African Americans. I'm a Morehouse grad, both college and school of medicine. And in 2012, the White House and the Keyno Center for Social Impact held a summit on tech inclusion. And they asked the question to a small group of stakeholders and leaders, what can we do to radically transform the landscape in technology to make it more inclusive and to make sure that African Americans and Latinos are well represented. And I came up with the idea of the Hbcu Startup and Innovation Initiative, which the White House and the Keyno Center got behind. That eventually morphed into something called the Hbcu Innovation, Commercialization, and Entrepreneurship, or ICE, initiative. In 2013, I knew immediately that we needed to bring the entire Hbcu community out to the Valley to see it and to experience it, to breathe the same air. And I'm happy to say that was a phenomenal success. Hats off to the Keyno Center, to the White House, to Stanford. Stanford actually rolled out the red carpet. Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg herself greeted us at the doors of Facebook. And Google, we had quite a great experience with Mary Grove, Google for Entrepreneurs, and we had a tour of Google's campus. That led to a real commitment from the leadership of HBCUs to get behind this initiative and to really drive it. What we wanted to do was to make sure that our campuses are connected to the world's greatest ecosystem. But I was actually leveraging the Valley's mythology internally to get African Americans sort of moving towards a space where we can actually think about creating value that the Valley and other tech ecosystems recognize, and claim some equity, have some equity stake in the matter. Because up to this point, and I was talking to a colleague who's here actually from the Bay Area, he works at Gladstone, he's a Morehouse grad. We were talking about what is the problem that African Americans face. But if we step back from this conversation and really ask the question, what do black people actually own and have equity? And the answer is not much. We really don't own anything. And to pay some homage to the Black Lives Matter movement, which I do support, we don't even own ourselves. So that's a problem. And then from a standpoint of the K-12 higher ed STEM pipeline perspective, as we look, those of us who've been through the entire STEM pipeline and now are sort of at a different point on the life curve, we can sort of look back down that pipeline and we can see that clearly that pipeline is broken in several places. And it's broken in a way that's pretty severe and dramatic. So what's happening in Oakland, for instance, OUSD, as a model where companies like Intel are investing in trying to change that situation with leadership from the OUSD board, from the superintendent's office, and then from the surrounding ecosystem of service providers and stakeholders like Kalimah and others, Hack the Hood, Code 2040. I mean, you've got, for those of us who live on the East Coast like myself, when we look at you guys out in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, it's almost like you're in the Emerald City, a lot of interesting characters, but we look to you guys as leaders. We actually do. When I live in Philly, I'm born and raised from Philly. I always talk about, well, the folks in Oakland are doing this, so why aren't you guys doing it? So I just want to mention that we have a summit every year. This year we'll have our third Silicon Valley HBCU Innovation Summit. My colleague, Karita Marrow, who's here, she's going to raise her hand in a second, is really the logistics ops person who, par excellence, and she's been doing a great job. So we need your help. We actually want to connect our students, our African American students, many of whom are majoring in computer science and engineering, to be connected to the Valley and the Bay Area in very organic ways. Kalimah and I are talking about how to do that on a more routine basis, but the bottom line is those of you who are engineers and tech professionals, we need you to step up and connect to our students and help them to understand how do you get to a place like Yelp or Uber or Google or Facebook. How do you, and I don't care whether you're African American or European American, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what color you are, you have expertise and talents and skills that our students need to learn how to gain and acquire as they think about their careers and their next steps. So I want to put that out there for those of you who want to help and participate. Karita is your person to connect with. Obviously, you can connect with me as well. So
I want to use that to segue, which is we have about 15 minutes left, which is like not, that's not going to capture sort of all that this panel has that they can share with you. So I want you to, I think the slide is up that lists our names and our pictures. So I want you to pick into your mind like, oh, I should ask my follow-up question when we have far too little time for questions. I should go up and approach this person from that panel and talk to them about X. Okay, so pick that in your mind. And now we'll take some of our first questions. Questions? Yeah.
Hi, my name's Linda, and I have a role modeling resource for girls. My question is for those of you who are working with kids in your program, do you have any best practices or tips in terms of engaging parents and other gatekeepers in terms of keeping, exposing kids to your programs and keeping them on point once they are in, just how best to work with their parents?
I'm going to add one piece of moderation, which is raise your hand if on the panel if you're like, oh, I could talk about this. Yeah? Okay, and then we're going to have one, maybe two people talk about it. So sometimes we'll all raise our hand and then we'll just follow up with that person individually, but let's hear from two folks and we'll try and keep sort of a minute a person. And I might cut you off. Okay.
I'll be really brief. So at Hack the Hood, we work with teenagers and with young adults. So we don't have the issues of parental engagement that a middle school or a child would have. And actually what we do is at Hack the Hood, we have a lot of youth accountability. So we actually don't focus a lot on engaging the parents because if you know any high schoolers, they don't want their parents to tell them what to do. But we use software development techniques every week called Scrum and Agile Development where the kids have a lot of peer accountability. What are you doing today? What do you need help with? What did you do yesterday? Are you at QA1 yet? Have you progressed? So I think there are lots of ways that you can create accountability among even younger teens that have to do with the ways that you engage them. We do try to keep parents informed, and we have a graduation that's always attended by all the families, and it's one of the greatest things to do.
I mean, we have a technical applicant prep program, and as a part of that, we're starting to do parent workshops. The reason for that being that the dynamic of what gets you competitive for a job changed. And it changed deeply over the course of the last generation, and it requires internships, it requires being on a computer and doing personal projects to be competitive, and often parents are not aware of that change. So it looks like your kid is playing on the computer or trying to get away from you over the summer, when in reality it's a part of how we're going and getting more and more competitive. And so we're just finding it really important to start thinking about that and doing that even at the community college level, in particular where so many people are local, because that dynamic it's deep. You've got to have projects in your arsenal, and parents are often a big barrier to getting there. Not intentionally at all either.
We had another question here, and then we'll go to the back and with the glasses. Okay. Sorry, there's two of you. We'll disambiguate in a second.
Hi, how's it going? Ryan Taylor, University of California, Davis, senior. So I was wondering, with organizations like National Center of Black Engineers and SWE and SHIP, how do they need to approach these issues strategically? Because there's a lot of grassroots work being done, and so larger organizations sometimes have a little bit of difficulty traversing that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so others want to take.
Good.
Transition.
Yeah, so NSBE, the guy who actually hired me, Carl Reed, is now executive director for NSBE. So there's great opportunity, I think, to partner. Sometimes when you get a lot of elephants in the room, there's not enough grass, but those of us who run organizations know what I meant. It's hard sometimes, but I do think NSBE is a phenomenal organization, has chapters all over the country, has a larger footprint than UNCF does, actually, with regards to black students who are, obviously engineers and at the undergraduate level. One of the things that I think the strength that NSBE brings to the table is a long history of helping African Americans get to a professional level beyond college, because there's alumni chapters as well. So we're actually talking with Carl and his crew now about how we can partner with the work that we're doing in the Valley. It could be as simple as having a joint hackathon competition to something that's a little bit more complicated when we're trying to build capacity on our campuses.
Do you want anything? Okay. Let's come to the suit in the back. Sorry. Yeah? Oh, sorry. Right over here. We'll come here and then there.
Good afternoon. I'm Jason Black. I'm at Florida A&M University, associate professor. And I have a question particularly about strengthening the pipeline. We have been pretty successful over the years in getting funding from the federal government to put programs in place on the undergraduate level as well as the K-12 level, but we run into two real roadblocks. One is that we're in a state that focuses heavily on testing. So when we try to go into K-12 to do initiatives that our funding allows for, we get stonewalled by the administration because they want to focus on testing. And so it's hard to come in even though we have the funding to put these things in place. The other roadblock that we run into is that we're in a small town, like a lot of HBCUs. And so when we're looking for corporate mentors to come into the schools, there are very few in our area. So what advice would you have for other schools that are in our similar situation?
Yeah.
So I can say that being on the school board and being a full-time litigator in court almost every day, and then running around to schools and seeing that it's really hard to make change, if at all, but much less quickly. And so what I've learned in the fact that I represent, so we're elected by district, so I have a district of about 14 schools. So I go into my schools, I get to know the principals. Unfortunately, we lose about 25% of our principals every year. We lose about 25 to 30% of our teachers every year. So you have new principals, new teachers in front of needy students. However, what I've been able to keep my hope alive is that there are teachers who stick it out, who knew what they were getting into, who are from Oakland, and sometimes they're from the very school of teaching. One of them in particular, my high school, Fremont, it's all African American and Latino. And so there are teachers that know their students got exposed to something over the summer, but for what? Because then they get back to school and there's not a single computer science course, there's not a single thing that looks like that program they went to at Stanford because they're poor and because they're black or brown. And so there are teachers who have cropped up throughout Oakland Unified who are just going to make it happen under the radar. They're doing it in the math department or they're doing it in the science department. And so yesterday I had a meeting with some Google execs, and the key teacher that I pushed hard on our superintendent and staff to get her in the position of creating computer science curriculum for the whole district as far as high schools. But beyond that, she can go down into the middle school, and eventually it really should be K through 12. And they're doing it in San Diego, in a small portion of their district that's the most impoverished area of the district. And so now what happened before was white flight. Kids didn't want to be in any of those schools. It's like a third of the San Diego school district. Now the white kids are trying to come back, and the parents are trying to save money on private schools because it's a STEM corridor, an amazing STEM corridor. So we're trying to copy that in Oakland. The problem is it is very hard to make change. And so finding a principal, going to a school, finding the teacher, I also feel like because the amount of students that we just had graduate this June, they're going into computer science as a major. And we are brainwashing them, come back and be a teacher here. Teach the kids that you know don't have internet, don't even have a computer. We have an amazing organization called OTX. They give away free refurbished desktop computers but some of our parents don't even know. So it's a lot of different pieces to lift this parachute, but definitely with schools, I've seen teachers who are hungry for this because they don't want their children to be left behind. You just got to keep pushing in the school, make that personal connection.
I'll add one more plug, which is you've got to make these partnerships. And so if what they're interested in is increasing their math test scores, try and find computing curriculum like Bootstrap World, which is working on integrating computer science to build algebra skills. So I think finding those things that help you form a true partnership. And once you have that true partnership, you might be able to expand and refocus, but we're never going to be able to start by saying your goals are wrong, because that's their institutional context and their goals.
But I will say politically that I don't agree with the direction we're going on testing. I think when I think back to my own public school education here in Stockton, California, there wasn't week after week after week of testing, and I understand now it's triple or quadruple the amount of testing that just 25, 30 years ago, and I think that is about profit. And who's behind testing in this country? It's about profit, it's about making a lot of money, and there's a very small handful of people that are making all that money. And so politically speaking, I hope people will get involved whether you already have children or not, because that's not what you want for your future children that you'll have, which they're just being forced to study to the test, and it means nothing in the real world. And that's the other unfortunate part about our situation today.
Let's come for a question here, and then next we're there.
Hi, my name is David Cole. I'm with Automatic. I flew down here from Austin, Texas, where my wife is a teacher at a KIPP school, the Knowledge is Power program. And they're typically dealing with economically disadvantaged youth in their schools. And one of the things that I think, Ms. Merritt, you mentioned is you talk with the kids in Hack the Hood about code switching. And so I just kind of wanted to know a little bit more about how do you coach them on that so that they can get a job to where they can be accepted, but also then what challenges are you seeing with getting people to relate to them if they come from a different background?
This is a topic that my team and I talk about all the time, and I'm the co-founder who has a background working in tech. I was a tech executive in Silicon Valley. One of my other co-founders is an educator from Deep East Oakland. We meet the kids where they are, and we talk about cultural wealth and resiliency. We also talk a lot about code switching because the experience of being othered is really significant, and microaggressions are real. So if you're a young person, you may have technical skills, you may have come to believe I can do this job, but businesses are not always at a place where what they think is welcoming is actually welcoming to somebody who's both new to the field and a person who's of color, coming from a poor community, doesn't have a lot of privilege, didn't go to Harvard, whatever. And I'm not suggesting people from those backgrounds don't also experience other and code switching. We talk about it very frankly starting on day one. We talk about the ecosystem, we talk about how entrepreneurship, innovation, owning something all fit together with working in tech, because tech can be a fantastic building ground to learn skills to take back to your own community to start a business. Or you may want to choose to start a business right away using the skills you learn in an organization like Hack the Hood. Mm-hmm. So we try to just encourage frank discussion of hard conversations and let people choose the path that's going to work for them in terms of where they want to go next, and try to support them in that.
And can I say one more thing about that is this can't be about assimilation. So much of the conversation right now, to me, feels like we're telling a bunch of kids to assimilate to a world. And if they do not bring the thing that makes them an individual to the tech table, we will replicate the exact same structure that marginalized swaths of the country in the first place, right? And so we have to build in our students a pride of their culture and their experiences and the perspective that gives them that no one else has, because that perspective will save technology.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to take our last question, which we likely won't have time to finish answering. And I think the real shame is how much I would love to pick everyone on this panel's brain. I would love to spend hours with this, and we've only got 40 minutes, so we're going to take one more question. just keep talking. I
I'll
bet
ask
it'll
the
come
question
on.
quickly then. Good afternoon. My name is Byron Breland. I serve as the president for San Jose City College in San Jose. And I'm also here with our Chief Business Officer, Vice President Jorge Escobar. And we're curious about, how we can start to engage the community colleges more in the discussion. We know that we serve about 18,000 to 20,000 students a year. We're a majority minority serving institution. And we're looking to figure out how can we engage as part of the pipeline. We talk a lot about K through 12, the Stanford, CSU, and the UC system. But we're here to meet people and try to figure out how we can get plugged in as a community college. So I'm wondering if anybody has any of those initiatives going, and if you can maybe answer the question in that way. But we also doing this as a PR to say we're here, we're ready to participate. We have lots of wonderful, bright students who need to be in this technology discussion as well. So
That's right.
Yeah. You got 20 seconds. How do you feel about that?
The reason why President Obama is trying to offset the financial costs of community college is that community colleges can do what other schools can't, and that is that community colleges can become labs where there's experimentation, where you throw out all the rules and you get these kids in and you start focusing less on, because the conversation around minority kids is always about skills, but at private schools they always talk about imagination, curiosity, exploring, and that's the education that Mark Zuckerberg got. And our whole thing is that our kids need to be able to have the skills, but we also need to be able to explore and be able to transform community colleges into labs. I think is a great step in the right direction.
That was just jumping on top of that super fast. We would love to partner with you in San Jose. We're interested in ways to have ELTP certification for our programs, and we're probably a potential partner.
Yeah. This was such a great opportunity. Make sure you're talking to people next to you throughout the rest of the conference. Thank you to the panelists.